Welcome back to the Joe Miller Show, KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM. This show is made possible by the McPherson Tax Defense Group, 1-800-BEAT-IRS, BeatIRS.com. That's BEAT IRS. Serving Alaskans, the nation since 78 with 2 generations of tax defense attorneys. We have with us my good friend, William Owens, Jr., political activist. He was actually up here in Alaska supporting our 2010 effort against Lisa Murkowski. He's been engaged politically ever since, currently involved in what's called the Race to Reconcile, writing a book about that, and also getting ready to start a bike ride September 15th from the West Coast to the East Coast. Mr. Owens, thank you for being on the Joe Miller Show.
Joe, it is a pleasure to be with you, man. It's been some time, and it's great to hear your voice, and thanks for having me on the Joe Miller Radio Talk Show.
Well, it's always a joy to talk to you. The only disappointment I had in preparing for this segment was I don't see Alaska on the itinerary for your bike ride. I guess Canada must not figure as a priority too much for you.
No, it doesn't, brother. I'm going to tell you, man. Riding a bike, 2,700, right at 3,000 miles is enough going all the way east from California, taking the message of reconciliation by love, forgiveness, and hope. You know what? I'll just send my love to you up in Alaska. How about that? And you can somewhat follow me online as I go throughout the area.
That sounds good, and we'll try to have you back on, too. So, of course, race issues, front and center in the news. You have Ferguson, you have Maryland. A lot of people scratching their head thinking, okay, so we've got a black president, and yet it seems that race relations are worse today than they were before he got into office. Was that part of the catalyst that spawned this project for you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about what started it, what the mission is, what you hope to accomplish?
Well, you know, what started it was my own personal experience with dealing with that issue outside of what's happening in Ferguson, what's happening with how our leaders are handling it. I had an issue that took place, and I had to make a decision. It was a business deal that went south. I had all the legal things lined up. I could have taken vengeance. I could have gone in court. And, you know, God just spoke to my heart. He said, forgive, you know. He said, just forgive. And it was so happened, this was happening in the light of what was happening in Ferguson. You know, so I just chose to exercise this thing called love. I just chose to forgive. And I did. I was surprised at the response that came back from the business associates. They were blown away. They were getting ready to lawyer up just like I was. But I just chose to forgive. And it did something to me, Joe. It did something to my heart. And I think what we see happening in Ferguson, what we see happening just recently, you know, I think it's a heart issue in our nation. Unfortunately, you know, the media and the political arena wants to polarize this and build and dig deeper wedges between us as human beings. You know, if it wasn't our skin color, it would perhaps be the color of our eyeballs. It would cause us to be at odds with each other. But it's really a heart issue. The narrative that's spinning that right now is a false narrative. It's a heart issue. We're simply finding reasons to be upset with one another. And the easiest way to do it is to look at each other and say, well, they look different than I do. It's really a heart issue. And so that's what Race to Reconcile is about. It's like, listen, let's not get distracted by what it looks like. What's the real issue? Let's look at the man in the mirror. That's what I had to do, and that's what all of us are going to have to do if we're going to bring America back together again.
Why do you think it is that the media so often fans the flames of racial hatred? What is the motivator there?
It's easy. It's easy for them to take the sound bites. It's easy for them to take the issues. And again, let's just be real about it, Joe. Media is big business. They're all about numbers. They're all about viewership. They're competing against with other media companies. And, you know, I think another factor is that greed. You know, these media companies are driven by getting advertisers. Advertisers are driven by the fact they're going to have eyeballs looking at their ads. And if they can get, you know, another race issue, somebody got shot, you know, if they can get that and be the first one to capture the story, that's what they're after. I can't really say that the news is after what's best, what's in the best interest of our nation. I mean, that would be a good debate, but they're running themselves like a business. That's what they're about. But to be very direct with you, I think they're not helping in the sense of how they cover the story. There's always spin. There's always a a philosophy and ideology that drives these media organizations. And that's what's on the top on their mind, is how can we also be sure that we are voicing our ideology and how we see it. That's going to be a driving force behind it all. But we have to be wise enough and careful enough to read in between the lines and make an assessment. And from a Christian perspective, the point I'm making is this: reconciliation is only possible as we allow the same grace that God showed toward us through his son, Jesus Christ, to be shown toward others. And if we forgive, he forgives us. And forgiveness is so important to where Jesus said, listen, if you don't forgive, my Father won't forgive you. And this is a clarion call to America. 97% of Americans claim Christianity. What's going on here? I don't care what color you are. Where is the acts of forgiveness? And that's what's propelling me, literally, to get on this bike and go from the West Coast to the East Coast. And people can find out about it at Race to Reconcile and also support me to help make this possible.
Right, and you also have a book that's coming out. You plan on publishing that at the conclusion of the race or at the conclusion of the ride?
Yes, at the conclusion of the ride. It's going to be a fabulous book. It's not just me. We have different contributing authors who are going to be in it. We have Alveda King, who's writing a piece in it, Bill Federer. We have Stephen Broughton. We have other people who are contributing small essays, about 600 words, about reconciliation. It'll also be embedded with stories that I would have had a chance to experience doing my bike trek from California all the way to the East Coast. I keep saying all the way to the East Coast because I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to end up, if it's going to be St. Augustine, Florida, or if it's going to be South Carolina. I believe it's going to be South Carolina. And so people can follow the trek right at racetoreconcile.com. We have a crowdfund page set up at Race24Give. Race, the number 2, the number 4, and give stands for Race2Forgive.com as well.
Hey, that's a nice-looking bike you got there, too. I see that at the website. Is this all set for the 3,000-plus miles that you're going to be taking it?
Yeah, man. It's a Trek 920. If you see those hooks on the front, that's where I'll be putting my luggage. I'll be putting luggage on the back. So I'll be pulling about a good 40 to 60 pounds. And I'll be heading out September 15th. In fact, we have a link on our site, Joe, where a person can say, hey, I'd like to host this guy to stop and talk about reconciliation. We have a college who's literally wanting me to stop and talk to their students, not their students, but the college body, the student body is doing it. They want me to come and talk about reconciliation. And it's important that we as leaders, that we as adults would begin to set alternative examples of how to deal with conflict. This is a great opportunity for us to show how do we deal with conflict. But we're quiet. We're not saying much. We need to say more and do more. And I have a novel idea how we can make change, and that's by speaking to one another. Say hi. Say hi to somebody who doesn't look like you, who doesn't talk like you. You're at the grocery store. You're pumping gas. Quit just looking at each other and looking away. Say hi. Break the ice. So that's what this trek is about. We're just not taking our social skills, pushing ourselves out of our discomforts, and reaching out to be friendly. If we're friendly, people will be friendly in return. And that's what Racetoreconcile.com is about. I'm propelled to do this, and it's been in my heart to do it for about a year. I got a bit delayed, but I'm back on point, and that's what this is all about.
Well, I appreciate your efforts in that way. We've only got just about a minute left here. We're one blood, right? We all come from Noah. We all come from Adam.
Absolutely.
And that's something that I think helps in that regard. But I appreciate you putting this front and center. It's something that this nation needs: healing, forgiveness, all sound Christian principles. And we'll continue to pray for you. Again, racetoreconcile.com. William Owens, friend of mine, a friend of liberty. Help him out with his trek. We'll pray for you, buddy.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Joe, for having me.
Stay with us. The Joe Miller Show will be back after these messages.